For over a decade, he has dedicated his work to uplifting local Chicana and Chicano culture through public art, digital storytelling, and culturally relevant community events. He founded Chicano Culture Santa Barbara in 2014, as well as the annual Cinco de Mayo in Santa Barbara Mural Bike Rides, a free, family-friendly initiative that celebrates local public art and heritage. A 2024 Santa Barbara Independent Local Hero, Michael's historical advocacy has been featured in the Los Angeles Times, Santa Barbara Magazine, and his work has been exhibited at the Santa Barbara Historical Museum and the Museum of Contemporary Art. He's volunteered his time this afternoon to provide, again, history and insights to the neighborhood and the street name as you all begin your deliberations on recommending a name for council to consider. Thank you so much, Michael.
My honor. Thank you so much. All right, well, I only got 20 minutes and let's get started. We're all here today because of some national news that was published on New York Times that is pertaining our local community of Santa Barbara. In this first slide here, you could see a newspaper comic done by Lalo Acaraz, who is a famous Latino political satire illustrator. And as you can see here, it is a child whitewashing Cesar Chavez. So when it comes to the actual physical space, what we're talking about, what we're focusing on, here is a map with a highlighted yellow section, which is the current Calle Cesar Chavez Street. It's 0.5 miles. It goes from Cabrillo Boulevard all the way to Gutierrez. And just to know, across the country, as you could expect, Martin Luther King Jr. boulevards and streets and avenues, you could find the same thing as in Cesar Chavez across the country. And one cool fact is that this was the only Cesar Chavez Street road that connects to the ocean, to the beach. So across the country, it's more of the inner urban settings and different geographic factors. Here is a specific image of that crossroads that converts Calle Cesar Chavez from Sasi Puede Street at the intersection of Gutierrez. With that said, I just want to give you a quick context. Thank you for the introduction, Barbara. I feel really honored. But like y'all already know, I've been doing this work for a number of years. I do it for the love of our culture. I just think our community and our history, our heritage, our leaders bring so much value to our community, and I just want to honor and bring that glory to our local community, to our region, and to the globe. So when it comes to my sources today, my main two sources, as you can see here, are these two books. Both of them have a focus on Santa Barbara, and I highly recommend it. For any aspiring historians, you gotta have the street names of Santa Barbara. It's like the dime novel of any local person. And then Chicanos and Change in Society, highly recommend it. It has a huge focus on Santa Barbara's Chicano community from 1848 to the 1930s. So this was a great source. And on top of that, Manuel Unzueta, who is our local legend muralist, who I had the honor of having him as my mentor and learning firsthand of our local traditions, our cultura, and so on. So with that said, let's get with this narrative. First things first, as y'all know, we are on Chumash land, and they are still here after thousands of years. They're my friends, and they still practice their culture, their language, their traditions till this day. Here's a quick painting by a local artist that was created in the early 1940s, I believe, and it depicts 1795 of Santa Barbara, a whole different place, but still the memory of the land never forgets. So my thing is, when I was doing this project, this presentation of Calle Cesar Chavez Street and its neighborhood. I had to really break it down on this sections here from, as y'all know, that you could just read here, I'll be going more in depth. So first things first, yes, this was Chumash land, and yes, that Ortega Park area, hence why we have Laguna Street, Sassy Puedes, Cuentina, these type of roads that represented a salt marsh, a wetland. And this is one of the earliest depicted maps from an aerial view by Mr. Haley. This was published in 1851. And as you can see in the top right, in the mid right section of the map, you'll see a body of water. So essentially that is the salt marsh, whether you're calling it a lagoon, a swamp, it's a body, it's a wetland. And this is where I kind of want to focus on, because when it comes to the memory land, as Santa Barbara started becoming colonized and developed, the current area of Ortega Park was historically been used as a town dump from the times of the Spanish to the Spanish to Mexican to the time of the Americans. It was actually a town dump all the way to our 1925 earthquake. So when it comes to this concept, for those who are in development, real estate, and so on, there's this concept called of undesirable land. And in other words, is if you were in Santa Barbara in the 1910s, the most accessible piece of land, and that is affordable and near to the local business district and to the ports and so on, would be living right next to the town dump. That was the ghetto, that was the barrio. So, with that said, with the development of these roads, remember this map goes from the 1848s to the 1930s. This is where horse and carriages were still being utilized. Our infrastructure was being converted to roads, and essentially Sassy Puedes literally translates to get out if you can. You might lose a wagon wheel, you might lose a boot. That type of physical effect later evolves as the area gets developed. As mentioned, the 1925 rubble was utilized to reclaim the land. Very much of the Ortega Park east side, as mentioned, was a wetland, and the rubble was used to reclaim it. And thus also how Santa Barbara's identity changed going forward, starting with a clean slate. So, as mentioned, from the town dump, people were living by the town dump. People got together, the local parent PSA, the working class, the nice philanthropists in Montecito, they all got together like, hey, these folks should not be living at a town dump. They should make this into a park because it was environmental racism. From there, town dump went into Ortega Park. And from Ortega Park, as y'all know, is one of the hearts locations of our community. And the most iconic mural can be found in Santa Barbara, specifically Ortega Park, which depicts the United Farm Workers Eagle. And just know that the original mural was done by Jose Gutierrez and Armando Vallejo back in late 1970s. So long story short, the UFW is very important when it comes to workers' rights, treating farm workers who feed our country, feed the world, pick the land. When it comes to the important infrastructure, the important service to our country, to the world, prior to the United Farm Workers, our people were treated as slaves without dignity and respect, and because of the organization UFW, which started more in the San Jose, Central Valley, and thus spread across the Southwest, and had its own impact here in Santa Barbara. That's why we have this symbols of the UFW. So I'm talking about UFW, and as you might notice, I'm not talking about Dolores Huerta, especially not Cesar Chavez. As a historian of 10 years, people ask me, even before this headlines and news, people are asking me like, what do you think about Dolores Huerta? What do you think about Cesar Chavez? I'm like, hey, prior of the headline news, I'm like, hey, these folks are national leaders, and I'm all about keeping it local. I'm all about honoring our local leaders who are here on day-by-day basis, who gave back to our community. And if anything, this idea of honoring this UFW, this Chicano movement, this civil rights movement leaders, these are the three people who made up the community of the Sasi Puedes, the East Side neighborhood. The first one is Ross Castro, the second one is Luis Rosura, and the third one is Revered de la Mendoza. And all three marched and organized with Cesar Chavez and Dolores Huerta and so on. So I just wanted to highlight these three leaders from folks who want to go from a national perspective. I'm like, whoa, let's honor our local history, our local heritage, our local leaders. So these are the three folks who I would like to highlight. So one thing that's very special about Santa Barbara is that when it comes to the civil rights movement, the Chicana movement, Latinx, Latinidad, how you want to pronounce it, prior of 1969 to specifically UCSB, only about 0.2% of the population was Hispanic. There was this huge barrier, not only for Hispanics, but people of color, when it comes to access of higher education. So students, the exceptional few who were able to go to university, got together with their peers, and as well as local community members from Santa Barbara, from the neighborhood of Sasi Puedes, and they're like, you know what, for social mobility, we gotta create this manifesto, this mission that we're gonna bring kids from the neighborhood, from the ghetto, from the barrio, and we're gonna intentionally create this infrastructure, a path to higher education. And guess what, this manifesto, fast forward 50 years later, UCSB is now a Hispanic serving institution. Now it's over 23%. So when it comes to planting those seeds of equity, of social mobility, this plan, El Plan de Santa Barbara, started here in Santa Barbara, started at UCSB, started in our neighborhood because they understood a need, a foresight to be like, yo, knowledge is power. Let's get these kids to the university. Another thing about Sasi Puedes Street is the home of La Casa de Raza. It's essentially our civil hub community center. Wish I had more time to talk about it, but just know that our community is extremely lucky to have this center. Because if you go in Los Angeles, San Francisco, Sacramento, Denver, they all have community centers like this. And we're so lucky to still have it despite it being up for sale. That's a difference. So when it comes to this spirit of si se puede, of which translates to yes we can, this mantra, just know that back in the 1970s, they started this newspaper called Sal Si Puedes, as y'all know, which means get out if you can. It was here and started in Santa Barbara, started La Casa Raza, and then eventually it transitioned to Si Se Puede. So essentially, and I had this upward mobility expression to it. I just wanted to show that of how that when you come from the hood, you come from the School of Hard Knocks, there's this resilience, and that's where Si Se Puede comes in. Where Sasi Puede, which means is get out if you can, which is like you want to leave your community and never go back. Well, in this case, if you're Chicano, Chicana, you want to get out of your community to go to university and then come back and to make it better. So that's kind of the essence of what Chicano, Chicana means with the Si Se Puede. Then dun dun dun, Cesar Chavez. So just know that Cesar Chavez loved visiting Santa Barbara. He absolutely loves living in Santa Barbara. I actually did a presentation a number of years ago, and his niece was there. His little niece lives in town. That was years ago. So with that said, Cesar Chavez, whenever he had to do work, activism, organizing work, it had to focus more on Oxnard. As y'all know, Oxnard, Santa Maria is known for its more of the produce and agriculture infrastructure, like strawberries and so on. So whenever he had to come to this region, he would come to Santa Barbara. And these are photos of him in Santa Barbara. I won't go into detail about the controversy and so on, but just know that Cesar Chavez did visit quite frequently when he was alive. So when it comes to this, we're coming to nearest the conclusion is, how did Si Puedes, this once marshy road with a Chicano civil rights type of backstory, the home of a cultural community center, how did all these elements, how did that create the street Calle Cesar Chavez? Well, with everything shared, I would hope to believe that you would understand that Santa Barbara is an incredible, special place historically when it comes to the Chicano movement. And in other words, just know that in 1997, that's when our community got together after years of organizing and advocacy with the city council. They finally transitioned the street from Si Puedes to Calle Cesar Chavez in his honor. And this was in 1997, 4 years after Cesar Chavez passing away. And you can also see Raquel Vela Mendoza right there in the photo. And it was even unveiled on September 16th on Mexican Independence Day. So everything was just done so intentionally and in a certain way. So this is where I really want to wrap things up, because my goal today is just to be a historian, as an educator, as a listener. I just happen to have the privilege of running this historical social media account. I just happen to be a person who listens to people's feedback and their requests, but ultimately here I'm just a historian, educator, and these are the streets that people have been telling me, from reverting it back to Si Puedes, switching it to Si Se Puedes in honor of the movement, switching it to the Calle de los Campesinos, which means Farm Worker Street, which has already been renamed on a national level for the holiday. When it comes to being an ally to our Filipino Americans, Larry Itlong, who actually started the UFW, and then for folks who hold Dolores Huerta very dear, there's a strong percentage of folks who want to rename it to her. With that said, I apologize if I went over time. I am just hoping for the best for our community and his leadership of here, and I'm here to answer any more questions and to be of service for our community.
Thank you so much, Michael. So we're going to go to public comment first, and then we'll ask Mr. Montenegro to stay for additional questions.